Thank you, Pat. Okay. No, when we have it. Yeah. Okay, so I see Senator Jackson is here, and she has this SB 424. This has to do with single-use, multi-use component tobacco products. It's item 8 in your agendas, members. Senator Jackson, you may proceed when ready.
Well, good morning. Long time no see, Mr.
I know. Crazy week.
Long hearing yesterday,
Yeah.
but I appreciate the opportunity to present SB 424, which would establish a comprehensive tobacco product waste program to greatly reduce existing and emerging waste streams associated with tobacco usage. The tobacco product waste covered by this bill includes not just single-use filters, otherwise known as cigarette butts, that we see ubiquitously littering our streets, our sidewalks, our green spaces, our beaches, our lakefronts, but also would address plastic tips that are used, single-use plastic tips that are used for the manipulation of tobacco products, and single-use electronic cigarettes that are increasingly preferred by tobacco users, as well as multi-use devices of several sorts, including vaporizers. Tobacco product waste is among the most vexing problems that is faced by municipal agencies in their efforts to keep our communities clean and our environment protected, costing millions to California taxpayers on an annual basis. Impacts from this waste on communities and the environment are several. The tobacco component of this waste leaches toxic chemicals into our waterways and our marine environment, creating a significant hazard to wildlife. The waste is also a hazard to children and pets who may unknowingly ingest an improperly disposed product when encountering it outdoors. Additionally, there are several plastic and increasingly electronic components to new and existing tobacco products that carry their own harms to wildlife and the environment. Plastic components, including cellulose filters in cigarettes, take decades to degrade, become microplastics, and create a dangerous mix of toxic and hazardous tobacco and plastic chemical pollution. Some jurisdictions across the state and across the world are making extraordinary efforts to get at this pervasive pollution problem. But those efforts have largely failed in no small part to the pervasive nature and difficult collection of single-use components. Single-use encourages users to dispose of their cigarette filters by smashing them underfoot, throwing them on a sidewalk, throwing them on the sand at the beach, and other ways of just simply leaving them in a form that is very difficult to recover. Or single use invites users to casually toss their vape cartridges when no receptacle is available, or to toss an electronic version of a cigarette like the one would toss a traditional cigarette. This measure, SB 424, addresses this pernicious problem through a twofold approach. First, this bill bans sale of single-use tobacco products in California. In most cases, multi-use tobacco substitutes already exist on the market and are available for purchase. Second, this bill requires that all multi-use tobacco products be regularly recyclable by either a local or state recycling program, similar to what we did last year when we passed a bill to have the producers of our pharmaceutical products, drugs and sharps, create take-back programs so that we could remove them from our waste stream and from our society at large once they expired or no longer serve any useful purpose. So if a component is not regularly recyclable, then the manufacturer of the product must set up either a collection or mail take-back program for that component, otherwise known as Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR. EPR programs, as I mentioned, already exist in California for several difficult-to-handle products, usually administered by Cal Recycle, mattresses, other products of that nature, tires. And these programs are, as I mentioned, administered by Cal Recycle and run by manufacturer-funded stewardship programs. This includes the pharmaceutical, drug, and sharp industry, as I mentioned, which starting in 2022 will be collected through a similar program that we envisioned for this. And this was as a result of a measure that I was able to get passed last year, SB 212, signed by the governor. And this is a follow-up on that program. Folks, if you've been on a beach cleanup or any kind of cleanup day, you'll note that cigarette butts are pervasive. And in fact, there was just a cleanup done in the Lake Tahoe area that accumulated, what was it, 750,000 pounds of cigarette butts. I mean, this problem really is a significant one. There is a way to deal with it. That's what this bill does. And with me today, I have Dr. Joanne Brass, who is the Special Products Manager with the California Product Stewardship Council, to testify on behalf of this bill.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Thank you, Senator Allen and the committee members. My name is Joanne Brass. I work for the California Product Stewardship Council. I also work for the National Stewardship Action Council. We're a nonprofit advocating for a circular economy. I also lecture at UC Davis in the Department of Textiles on topics of industrial ecology. I'm here today as a sponsor of the bill to urge your aye vote for SB 2424. Tobacco product waste has caused long-term damage to our ecosystem and our communities. Local jurisdictions are bearing the cost burden to remove tobacco waste from the environment, but cannot remove all the chemicals and microplastics leaching into the water, killing wildlife, and endangering public health. Peer-reviewed research indicates rising lung adenocarcinomas since the introduction of the acetate filters, which alter tobacco combustion, increasing smoke toxicants, as cited in the Journal of National Cancer Institute in 2017, so just recently. Currently, there is insufficient end-of-life management in place for proper handling of tobacco waste. In 2009, San Francisco spent nearly $10 million on cigarette butt cleanup alone. In March 2019, just a few weeks ago in Alameda County, the Downtown Streets team audited a 2-mile strip, which is already cleaned 3 times a week. So they're already paying for regular cleanups, and they still found over 1,000 cigarette butts on just this short strip of unincorporated Alameda County. I encourage everyone to look at the ground today as you leave the Capitol and notice all of the cigarette butts here on our own little slice of earth here in Sacramento. Costs will significantly increase as local governments phase in the deployment of capture devices to meet the total maximum daily load requirements as set by the state water reports. This bill bans the sale of single-use plastics in tobacco products that do not meet state and local recycling system requirements. The bill also requires electronic smoking devices be reusable, and the producers provide take-back programs for proper end-of-life management. We agree with the committee analysis that extended producer responsibility provides incentive to eliminate the waste at the source. We ask producers to take their fair share of responsibility for these hard-to-manage products, as local governments alone cannot handle the cost burden of toxic tobacco waste, posing significant health risks to human and the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Before we get to our second witness, I need to correct the record here. My numbers were off, and I don't want to be accused of hyperbole. It was just this morning on public radio, before a cup of coffee, I heard this, so my numbers were a little off. But I heard that volunteers on Earth Day and an Earth Day cleanup in South Lake Tahoe, that the number one source of the litter that they collected came from the 750 pounds of trash, not 75, whatever I said, but 750 pounds of trash. No small amount of trash was cigarette butts. They counted over 6,000 pieces collected by just 60 volunteers. So I want to be accurate on that. But it's still pretty horrific.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. I'm Genevieve Abaddon, and I represent the Clean Seas Lobbying Coalition that consists of 11 nonprofit organizations dedicated to plastic pollution solutions, including Heal the Bay, Surfrider Foundation, and others. Plastic pollution affects every stream, river, park, and street in California. It starts with fossil fuel extraction and continues through manufacturing, transportation, usage, and disposal. Plastics have recently been found to emit potent greenhouse gases as they break down, and with a planned 40% increase in plastic production over the next decade, unless we make major policy changes to significantly counter this, plastic production will account for 20% of global fossil fuel consumption. Most people think cigarette butts are cotton and, quote, biodegradable, but they're plastic, full of toxic chemicals, which harm wildlife and impact water quality. Additionally, microplastics have been found in tap water, bottled water, table salt, fish, shellfish, and agricultural soils, all of which pose a potential threat to human and animal health. As previously mentioned, cigarette butts are the #1 most littered thing on the planet. They're full of toxic chemicals. Cleanup data, International Ocean Cleanup data shows that during the group's 2018 coastal cleanup, more than 2.4 million cigarette butts were picked up worldwide, topping food wrappers and plastic beverage bottles. The same event picked up 842,837 cigarette butts and related litter from coastlines in the U.S. and 198,814 from California, more than from any other state. In conclusion, California needs to do something that will actually work to finally address our 30-year-old pollution problem by eliminating filters on cigarettes. We respectfully urge your aye vote on SB 424.
Thank you so much. Okay, so folks who want to weigh in and voice their support for the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brennan Garcia on behalf of Rethink Waste in support.
On behalf of
On behalf of Rethink Waste.
Okay, great, thank you.
Brandon Dawson with Sierra Club, California in support.
Thank you.
Good morning, Justin Malone for the local environmental health administrators in strong support.
Thank you.
Ursula Quiros on behalf of Stop Waste in support.
Okay. Anyone want to voice opposition, concerns about the bill? All right, so we'll bring it back to the committee. Questions from the committee members? Senator Wachowski.
Senator, have you thought about harmonizing this bill with what the European Union did? I mean, they passed a pretty extensive bill to outlaw cigarette butts, but their effective date is like 2024 for implementing an extended producer responsibility. This is all due in January, which seems rather abrupt.
Well, the reason that we are setting an early date is we want to get the tobacco industry to the table. If we follow the pattern that we did getting the pharmaceutical industry to the table, we sat down and basically the question is simple. This is what we want to accomplish. How do you propose doing it? And with the pharmaceutical industry, we essentially left it up to them to figure out the methodology they were going to use. We gave them certain metrics that they were going to have to obtain, and that bill becomes effective in 2022. So again, it's a question of bringing people to the table, having them sit down, recognize the problem, the urgency of it, and figure out how we can best achieve that goal. And certainly, I suspect that we won't be there by January 2019, but we will hopefully have a system in place with a reasonable startup date and have the industry taking that responsibility for figuring out how to address a mess that we as policymakers determine is not acceptable in our state.
Yeah, I just know the Europeans spend on their plastic and recycling spend 5 years trying to come up with something, and just in October or November they got a deal that they have, and that presumably, because the staff report talks about out-of-state compliance, and it appears that if the tobacco industry and the plastic filter industry has to do this in Europe, it seemed like this would be a way. The parallel discussions here in the States.
That would make eminently good sense, Senator, and my hope is that the tobacco industry will recognize that and that we can have those discussions and come up with the specific solution. Right now, we are about to have meetings with them to bring them to the table. I feel very confident, though, that should we as a legislature make clear that they have got to help and take some responsibility for this issue, that they will come to the table if they know they have to. And that's basically what we're asking, is that we make it clear that they've got that responsibility, and I am very happy to work with them to achieve the best approach to resolving this problem and having them essentially take the lead in figuring out how to do it. That's what we did with the pharmaceutical issue. If the European Union has a system that works, I'm very interested in how we can apply that here in California. I don't want to get into the little details because they know this industry better, but the results are results that I am hopeful that this legislature will make clear that are the policy of the state and that they will then implement them in a way that works for all of us.
Okay, and then, Mr. Chair, the last question is our nascent legal marijuana industry. That we've got a lot of, this legislature is not short on new regulations on how we believe we can regulate pot, and do that. This extends to those single uses. It's not bongs and pipes. This is...
No, this is single use regardless of what the product is that's being smoked within it. So it would apply to single use marijuana cigarettes. I can't imagine what they would look like, but it does apply to the receptacle regardless of what is being smoked within it.
Okay. I don't know how they come to the table.
Well, I think, I don't know how they envision smoking pot as a tobacco-type product differently than the tobacco industry itself. I mean, we haven't seen this before, but better to start them right at the beginning, I would suggest, than have them create something and then we say, no, that isn't going to work. To have them in at the ground level, I think, is helpful to them as well, so that they recognize that single-use, disposable marijuana butts, or whatever they're going to call them, are not acceptable either.
Yeah, what I'm worried about is that there's been somewhat of an overload with the state legislature on passing a variety of bills to regulate this community that has never been regulated. And the idea of them participating in the extended producer responsibility, which is on the intellectual level, I get, but I'm just spotting the issue. The staff has spotted it, and it's just one of those.
And again, if they'll come to the table and tell us what their concerns are, what their needs are, and a proposal to resolve the problem, I'm completely open and actually interested in their perspective.
Okay. Great. All right. Other questions, thoughts? Yeah, Vice Chair.
Question about the person who possesses the cigarette with a filter on it, and they bought it in another state. They bought a year's supply, if that's possible. So there's nothing about the possession of a single-use filter, and those are cigarettes, basically, the filter tip, has some of these banned products. I mean,
well, we're looking at the manufacturer. That's really the best and the most broad-based way to deal with the problem, is the manufacturer of the product. So if someone has possession of them, I don't think we've addressed their possession. I don't think that's what we're looking for. We just want to close out the use of this product in the manufacturing process.
I guess what I'm saying, Senator Jackson, is that they could just stop producing them in the state of California, and you could just run across the border and get them in Mexico or wherever, if they're not going to come to the table and have a discussion. So I'm not sure that the path might not be there, and I'm certain they should continue to work on it. But if you're a major cigarette manufacturer and you have to change, the way you make a cigarette with the attached filter on it that has some of this plastic component or non-biodegradable, and to change your entire way you manufacture a cigarette, they might say, forget it, I'll just sell them in Mexico and other states. And then people who still smoke, I mean, it might be a deterrent, indirect benefit, a deterrent to smoking, then people have them because there's nothing about possessing them.
Well,
if I buy them, let's say I go out of state, get them, and I give them to a friend, then that would be something that, I'm now guilty of because I have shared it with a friend. I think that's in there, but not just possessing it myself. And I'm only asking the question, not asking you to find an answer today. That's something that needs to be discussed with those who manufacture cigarettes, the major tobacco companies and how to get them to the table to discuss these things is really important.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. As far as the issue of, well, they won't sell in California, you know, we're such a large economy. Those arguments were used back with automobile standards that were created. But California is a major, sadly, when it comes to tobacco, because we know it's unhealthy. And then the European Union, they're also getting in line on this. So manufacturers are usually pretty smart. They see the future, and certainly if it's been presented directly to them. So my hope and expectation is that they would start changing the way they manufacture their product. And again, you don't know until you try, and of course the goal here would be, it certainly would help the nation and the world if we could get rid of this horrific pollution that really, like plastics, is really kind of taking over the planet. So again, happy to work with them. We did this, we basically, I wanted to bring this bill kind of playing off the success we had with the pharmaceutical industry, which we were told would never happen. And so it's my hope that we can address another very significant problem here in our state and in our country for the environment and health and what have you by taking on this challenge, which I think we can accomplish. I'm optimistic based upon what we've done in the past. So with that, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. So we don't have a quorum yet. We will certainly take up your bill, and your bill enjoys a do pass recommendation. So appreciate your presentation. Appreciate your work in this area. Obviously, something I care a great deal about as well. Just logistically, this is going to judiciary, but is there time? I mean, how does it work?
It's likely that there will be a waiver.
Okay, I understand.
Or if not, we will try to hear it with some kind of assistance. This, I think, has been...
Off of the floor, or what?
I'm totally not sure.
I thought I'd had enough of judiciary for the week. You know, it's
We're back again.
okay. So we may have to come back for a off the floor hearing.
Yeah. If we don't get a waiver, we'll be back.
Okay.
You can be sure we've developed a family atmosphere.
Right.
And late in the evening for
Right.
judiciary. I hope that we don't have to, but if we do, we will.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do appreciate it. Thank you for the advocates. Okay.